Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. I'm Fina and today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in October. So the first book that I read in October was And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This was a perfect book to start off the month and I ended up really enjoying it. And Then There Were None is about a group of people who are invited to stay on this island, and when they arrive there, their host is mysteriously absent and then the guests start dying, and there's no way to get off this island. They can't contact anyone on the mainland for help, and they're stranded alone on this island with a murderer. I finally understand why everyone raves so much about this book. It is a masterpiece, honestly. I definitely think it's one of Agatha Christie's best, and probably the best Agatha Christie novel that I have read. The setting and atmosphere of this book was definitely one of the highlights for me. It's very claustrophobic feeling, and it really added to the tension I felt while reading it. It kept me turning pages so quickly because I was always at a loss as to what was going to happen next. The way that Agatha Christie wrote this story made the island feel so small and made the setting of the story feel so confining. And I think that that really added to the overall tension of the book, because we know that these characters are trapped on this island and that there's no way off. And it just really helped keep the tension up and kept me turning pages right until the end. The reason that I didn't end up giving this book 5 stars is because I feel like the reveal in the epilogue happened a little bit slowly. The shock that I would have felt was almost lessened because of how slowly the reveal happened. And while I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing, I think it would have been even better if the reveal could have happened faster. But overall, I think that this is a really great mystery novel and I do highly recommend it. So the next book that I read in October was Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. So this book is about an angel and a demon who team up to stop Armageddon. I've already seen the Amazon TV show and I think that it is amazing. It's definitely a really close and faithful adaptation of the book, but I do think that the book is worth reading as well because it was amazing. It was probably my favorite read of October. I just loved the humor. It literally made me laugh out loud a few times throughout the story, and I think that the audiobook that I ended up listening to was phenomenal. The audiobook narrator did a fantastic job, and I don't normally like a lot of humorous books, but this one was just amazing, and I do highly recommend it. So then I took a break from reading novels and decided to try reading a webcomic, and so I ended up reading Third Shift Society by Meredith Moriarty. This webcomic is just incredible. I really loved it. I think that the characters are really lovable and the art style is really fun. And I am so looking forward to the next season because I didn't realize there was only one season when I started reading this, and I got to the last episode and I went to click next episode and there wasn't one, and it made me sad. It's a super fast paranormal read and I think that it is well worth your time. The next book that I read in October was one that I ended up giving 2 stars, and I won't talk about it too much because I've already posted a full-length review for it, and that is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I wanted to love this book. I'd heard some amazing things about this book going into it, but I just ended up really not loving it that much. And I won't get into all of the reasons here because, as I said, I do have a complete review for it and I will link that in the description box. But I just didn't like the main character. I just felt like her decisions didn't make sense and I could never really get a grasp of who she was as a person. And I didn't like the love interest either. I thought that he was pretty stereotypical and the romance was insta-lovey and annoying. And while I did really like the world building, just overall, I just didn't really love this book, unfortunately. The next book that I read was The Clocks by Agatha Christie. I have been listening to a lot of Agatha Christie's books on audiobook. I really like the ones narrated by Hugh Fraser. I think he does a fantastic job narrating. And so I picked up The Clocks and I really liked it. It was a solid mystery. Definitely not one of Agatha Christie's best, but I do think it's still well worth reading. Obviously this is a murder mystery. It is one of the Poirot mysteries, and I think it was good. I think it's well worth reading, and it is very interesting because it flips back and forth between a first-person narration and a third-person narration, which you don't really see a lot, but I do think it did work really well in this book's case. The next book that I read is another super popular book that I ended up really not enjoying, and that is The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. I did not go into this book expecting to hate it. In fact, quite the opposite. I expected to fall in love with this book. Everything I'd heard about this book just sounded right up my alley, but it just ended up not working for me. So this book is about a girl named January who discovers this book called The 10,000 Doors, and this book is all about portals to other worlds, and as she continues reading it, she discovers that the story that the book is telling seems to be intertwining with her own story. And that's pretty much all I can say because this book is very, very hard to describe. I have a very difficult time describing it. But it did sound like something that I would be very interested in. I'd heard that the writing was incredible, and it was. It was really good writing. I thought that it was beautiful writing, but that's all this book was for me. I really didn't connect with the characters. I didn't like them, and the plot was really slow moving. It did not have nearly as much to do with portals to other worlds and other worlds as I wanted it to, and I figured that this was going to be like a portal fantasy, but it really didn't feel that way. I wanted the portals and the other worlds to play a much bigger part in the story than they ended up doing, and it just really didn't end up being the book that I thought I had signed up for. And yeah, it was disappointing for me. I wanted to love it so much, but I just ended up really disliking it, and I apologize because I know a lot of people really did love this book, but I just couldn't, and I am sad about that because it was a book that I thought I was going to love, but I don't know, it didn't work for me. The next book that I read is technically a short story, and that is Finessing the King by Agatha Christie. This was a fine short story. It's a Tommy and Tuppence short story. It's a mystery. It was fine. It was fun. I feel like Agatha Christie's short stories generally don't quite hit the mark for me. They're just too short to really fully enjoy the mystery. They're too short usually to guess who the culprit is. It's not that they're bad most of the time, it's just that they're not as good as her full-length novels. And so while I did enjoy this story, I don't think that it's anywhere close to Agatha Christie's best. The next book that I finished in October was Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I love this book. I went into it expecting to love it, and I ended up really loving it. Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere books have never failed me. They have never failed to impress me, and this was no exception. I really enjoyed the political aspects of this book. I found the politics of this world really, really interesting, and I loved the characters. I thought Siri was awesome and spunky, and I loved Lightsong. I thought he was awesome. Vivenna, it took me a while to warm up to her, but I ended up really liking her as well. And I liked Vasher. I didn't start the book liking Vasher, but I ended up warming up to him as well. I did have a few minor issues with this book, but overall I ended up really loving it. I will be posting a full-length review for this very soon, and I will be talking about all of my thoughts. I'll be doing a spoiler-free section and then a spoiler section so that I can go into all of the things that I want to talk about this book. So look out for that if you're interested in seeing more of my detailed thoughts about this book. But yeah, overall, I do highly recommend it. It is currently a standalone. I think there might be a sequel at some point, but currently it's a standalone and can be read as a standalone, and I do highly recommend it. Then I read 2 other Agatha Christie short stories, so The Case of the Middle-Aged Wife and The Case of the Missing Lady, and I rated both of these 1 star. I just really didn't like either of these stories. They were just not my thing at all. The resolution for The Case of the Missing Lady was just, it felt so anticlimactic and a little bit stupid to me. And the entire story for Case of the Middle-Aged Lady was just pointless to me. It was just ridiculous, and I really didn't like it at all. I actually considered DNFing The Case of the Missing Lady, and it's literally only like half an hour long. So that probably tells you exactly how unenjoyable it was to me. There isn't really much to say about either of these. I just really didn't enjoy them whatsoever. And the last book that I read in October was Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. This is actually my first book by John Green. I actually own 2 other books by him, but I haven't picked them up yet. And I honestly don't know why I've put off reading them for so long, because I ended up really enjoying Turtles All the Way Down. I think that it was a really honest portrayal of anxiety and OCD, and I ended up really connecting with this story. I feel like the dialogue was a little bit stiff in parts, but I overlooked it. I ended up really liking this book. It is a very heavy book, and so I would definitely check out the trigger warnings before picking it up, but if you think you can handle it, I do highly recommend it. I think that it's amazing, and it's also fairly short, so it doesn't actually take that long to read, and the audiobook was very good as well. So those were all the books that I read in October. Have you read any of these books? And if so, what did you think of them? What was your favorite read of October? Please let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of my content. I post videos every Monday and Friday. I will see you guys again very soon. Bye.